Hurry up. Derek Stone's boot jabbed into Marcia Williams's back. The 42-year-old black woman slipped on the wet floor. The mop flew from her hand. The bucket tipped water, streaking under the cold lights. 24 rich trainees at Iron Forge Academy went silent. A few phones lifted, then dropped, as if afraid to capture something forbidden. Stop staring at the fighters. Make it clean, Derek said flatly. He stepped over her as if over a stain. At the reception desk, Sarah Martinez pretended to check the timesheet. Her lips pressed tight. Eyes down. For 3 years, exactly 6 p.m. Marcia pushed her mop cart through the side gate. From there, she vanished into the background. The 8,000-square-foot facility overlooked Scottsdale through floor-to-ceiling glass. Chrome and black tones, white lights, a full-sized octagon in the center. Heavy bags hung like leather sentries. Derek, 35, owned 30%, never made it big in pro fighting, but built a throne on Instagram, neatly edited knockouts, alpha quotes plastered everywhere. His students were tech executives, semi-pro athletes, influencers addicted to looking accomplished. Tyler Harrison. 21, a college wrestler, was the favorite. Coach Miguel Rivera. 60 quiet, stayed in the corner correcting anyone who would listen. Marcia passed through them as if invisible. But she saw everything: chin angles, shoulder turns, foot, placement, hip rhythm, the same sloppy mistakes in Derek's drills, especially his rear naked choke defense. At 6:45 p.m., Tyler walked in, eyes bruised, tape on his cheekbone. The lobby screens replayed him losing to a basic choke at an amateur bout that afternoon. Derek paced like a lion before mirrors. He raised his voice for the class. "It wasn't your fault. We teach proper technique here. Street fighters fight dirty." He turned, demonstrating the proper move, chin, high arms, wide neck, exposed like an invitation. "No," Marcia said aloud. A single word dropped on the floor like a coin in an empty church. Silence froze the room. Derek spun. "What did you just say?" Sarah stared into her notebook. Tyler studied his shoes. "Nothing, sorry," Marcia murmured, reaching for the mop. "No cleaning lady wants to teach technique." Derek smirked. He stepped closer. New rubber and sweat mixed with disinfectant. "You correcting me in my gym?" Marcia's gaze stayed steady. "You're teaching it wrong. That move will get him choked out. Chin up is suicide." Murmurs rippled. Tyler glanced between them like someone had poked a pin through a perfect poster. Derek laughed, once no humor in it. 20 years in this place and you know better. Prove it." He pointed to a 100-pound heavy bag. "Put on gloves. Or admit you're talking nonsense." Marcia set the mop down. Bills. Rent due in 10 days. Maya, 17, waiting for dinner. The look on her daughter's face when she opened an almost empty fridge. Marcia laced the gloves. Took stance. Jab cross hook precise as clock hands. The bag lurched back 3 feet. Chains rattled like steel, speaking truth. Her footwork, tight hips, aligned guard high. The next combo hit like a hammer. Tendons thrummed like strings. No whistles, no cheers, only held breath. Tyler whispered, barely audible, "That's a real fighter's movement." Derek's face purpled. He stepped in close, voice low. "Don't you ever embarrass me in my own gym. You remember your rent, right?" Marcia slipped off the gloves, picked up the mop, said nothing. But everyone had seen enough. That night, her small apartment hummed with the AC. Maya slept curled in blankets. On the table lay an open notebook and a snapped pen. Blue glow from the phone lit Marcia's face. Derek's account posted a story training clip captioned, "Know Your Place." She scrolled past and shut it off. Elsewhere, Derek's office blazed white. He dug through databases, social media old clippings, a regional Golden Gloves champion, a military combatives file yellowed magazine shots. Same name, Marcia Williams. A chill crawled up his spine. Then ego surged back. No retreat, no admission, destroy at any cost. Next morning, the duty board bled red ink. Emergency cleaning slots filled the busiest hours. Derek prowled like a zookeeper, occasionally kicking an empty bucket. Sarah received a sealed envelope. Inside her locker, 5 old complaint files lay stacked, each a story never told aloud. She sighed softly, turned the key. That evening, Marcia entered again, calloused hands rougher. She knew she'd exposed a life she'd hidden for years. But some moments can't be swallowed forever. Some days, one line you're teaching it wrong can tilt an entire room. The floor dried. The smell of disinfectant faded. Marcia kept mopping along her invisible path as if nothing had happened. Yet behind her, a gear had started to turn. Ahead, a door creaked open, metal sighing like the chain on that heavy bag. No one heard it but her. And the next night arrived. Week 1 began with public humiliation. The emergency cleaning shifts landed right in peak hours. Sweat dripped over freshly mopped floors. Derek stood with arms crossed, watching. "Careful with the expensive stuff, girl," he said loud enough for half the gym to hear. The other trainers drifted away. Sarah slipped another report into the locked folder. Tyler avoided Marcia's eyes, stepping around the wet floor like dodging a question he couldn't answer. That afternoon, Derek made Marcia hold pads during a demo. At first light combinations. Then deliberate misses of forearm, grazing a swipe across her left shoulder right on the old military injury. A jolt ran down her arm. Her hand clenched on instinct. She forced it open, swallowed the pain. "Bad reflex," Derek said, thin smile curling. "Needs more training, sweetheart." The class looked at each other. No one laughed. No one stopped. Week 2, Derek began to talk. He showed a small group an old newspaper clipping, whispering, "She used to think she was a fighter. Look at her now." That week, his Instagram story accidentally caught Marcia kneeling under the weight rack scrubbing. Caption "Know Your Place" comments poured in like dirty rain. Stick to mopping. Dreams versus reality. Sunday night, Maya sat on the bed, eyes red. Her phone wouldn't stop vibrating. "Why didn't you fight back, Mom?" The question hung in the room like a flash of blinding light. Marcia held her daughter. Her heartbeat pounded like war drums no one could hear. Week 3. Derek wanted to break her. He accidentally shoved a weight into her path. Made students tell jokes about the cleaning lady who dreams of fighting while she wiped mirrors. Saturday night, he posted security footage, Marcia's combo from before, cropped, tight caption dripping sarcasm. The crowd did the rest. Shares, comments, messages, words stabbing through the screen like barbed wire. Maya blocked his account, then unblocked. Blocked again, unblocked again, as if she didn't know where to look to stop the hurt. 17 a.m. Monday. The gym was empty. White lights, red camera blink. Marcia opened a cardboard box on the chemical shelf. Inside, her old hand wraps frayed. She wrapped them slowly, head bowed like in prayer, stood before the heavy bag, let her body remember. Sharp jab, straight cross, hook to the ribs, uppercut up the center. The bag swayed, footwork smooth, head tilt perfect. Sweat broke into beads. Breath rose steady like music she once knew. The glass door clicked. Coach Rivera froze for a second, then stepped in and shut it quietly. "How long's it been?" he asked. Golden Gloves Regionals 2003 to 2007. Combatives instructor 8 years, MMA 15. Marcia's voice even, no pride, no shame. Rivera nodded, the eyes lighting with something between joy and fury. Derek said today he's ending this. Investors want silence. Whether you take it or fight it, he'll still fire you. So don't take it. What do you want me to do? Drag him into his own light, challenge him publicly, in front of his students, in front of his followers. His ego won't let him back down. Marcia looked at her hands. The calluses were a map, each scar a story. She nodded once. Rivera unlocked his phone. Derek's latest post glowed. Some people can't accept their limits. Marcia typed each word heavy. You want to settle this like a fighter, I, Marcia Williams, challenge you. Winner takes all. Loser leaves Iron Forge. Or are you scared? By morning, notifications exploded. Tags flooded Derek Stone's name. Local MMA forums opened betting threads. Spots around the mat filled before noon. Derek showed up. He couldn't back down. Retreat meant cowardice. Forward meant everything. He smiled into the camera Friday, after class. She wants a stage, I'll give her one. Tyler stood behind him silent. He saw something in his coach's eyes he'd never seen before. A flicker of chaos, thin as a hairline crack. Friday came faster than the ticking of a clock. Iron Forge turned into a battlefield. Black tape marked the lines. Phones rose like a forest. Sarah became the unwilling referee. 3 rounds, 3 minutes each. Touch gloves, keep it clean. Derek warmed up muscles, swelling under the lights. He spoke evenly into the lens reality check-in coming. Marcia entered from the back. Black pants, hands wrapped, eyes calm and steady. Rivera laid out a towel, water, medical tape. No words, none needed. Somewhere, a bell rang, not in the gym but in the chest of everyone watching. The air went still. The floor wasn't just a mat anymore, it was an arena where a story would write itself, punch by punch, restraint by restraint, a test of how the powerful wield their power. No one knew how it would end, but everyone knew something had already crossed the line, and there was no going back. Friday night crashed into Iron Forge like a wave. It wasn't a gym anymore, it was a glowing circle in a forest of upright phones. No seats, only pressed bodies and hot breaths. Sarah stood at the edge, hands gripping medical tape. Rivera double-checked the water bottle, towel, and bandages, then stepped back. Tyler stood behind Derek, shivering slightly, unsure if it was the air conditioning or the thing growing in his chest since the night he saw Marcia's combo. Derek rolled his shoulders, clapped his gloves, stared into the mirror, talking to the camera as if in another one of his rehearsed interviews. Marcia entered quietly through the back door. Black pants, wrapped hands. Her eyes didn't meet the crowd. They followed the mat as if she were listening to its heartbeat. Sarah drew a breath, her voice clear. 3 rounds, 3 minutes. Touch gloves, keep it clean. The room pulled its breath in and set a rhythm. They raised their gloves. Derek struck first, hard, like a declaration. Marcia tapped lightly in acknowledgement. When Sarah dropped her hand, there was no bell, but everyone knew it had begun because suddenly the light felt sharper, the white glare harsher, and the sound of shoes on the mat sliced the air like blades leaving sheaths. Derek lunged instantly, just like the highlight reels he wanted viewers to believe were the essence of victory. Right hand like a hammer, left like a paddle, hips open, shoulders charging forward. Marcia wasn't where he thought she'd be. Half a beat, she tilted her head right, letting the punch sweep through the space she'd just vacated. Another half she ducked, hearing the second arm's wind slice over her hair. Her right foot slid short, planted perfectly. 3 quick jabs flicked like taps on still water, not strong, not deep, just enough to make the head in front of her nod, just enough to remind him who controlled distance. The entire first round was a silent lesson. Marcia didn't attack, she read, measured, stepped in and out with eerie calm. Derek grew wild, hot, his breathing heavier every 10 seconds. When Sarah called time, the crowd realized they'd been holding their own breath for all 3 minutes. Derek's corner buzzed like a bar at closing time. He barked, "Why isn't she hitting? Why is she dodging? Why are you so slow with the water bottle?" Tyler handed the mouthguard silently. He saw sweat blooming early on his coach's back, saw eyes darting for the cameras, saw lips pressed tight in a way that didn't match the live streams. Marcia's corner was quiet as a hospital waiting room. Rivera placed a hand on her shoulder. "Enough for tonight." "This is the lesson." Marcia nodded. Once took a sip, set the bottle down. Round 2, Derek tried to find rhythm. He jabbed half-heartedly, trying to close the gap. Marcia stepped in at the exact moment the jab missed. Her cross traveled straight as a drawn line, not loud, not showy, but it snapped his chin back. Left hook sank into his ribs, cutting his breath in half. The whole room heard it, the rasping hiss torn out of Derek's lungs, short and thin. His mouthguard flew when the uppercut met his chin. No cheers, no mockery, just stunned resonance. Everyone knew they'd just seen real technique, the kind you never see in filtered clips. Marcia stepped back half a pace, gloves returning to guard eyes steady as if a teacher had just set the chalk down after writing a perfect equation. Derek returned to his corner, eyes blazing not from pain, but humiliation. His words drowned beneath the buzz of phones. He spat water, sneezed, clapped his gloves together trying to fan the flame. Sarah glanced at her stopwatch. Rivera leaned close to Marcia. "This is where you finish the lesson." Marcia said nothing. She exhaled. When they stepped out again, time slowed for a heartbeat, then dropped twice as fast. Round 3 never had time to form. Derek charged like a man bursting through a closing door. Right cross whipped from the hip, telegraphed so wide everyone saw it coming. Marcia stepped into it through the light of it. Heel planted hips, turned, shoulder slipped, left arm drew a short arc. The hook landed flush on the open chin. The sound wasn't loud, but deep like a hammer meeting solid wood. Derek was gone before he hit the floor. His body collapsed like a building losing its pillar. For a second, everyone heard their own heartbeat. Then came the flood voices, waves, names, screams, camera clicks. Marcia knelt beside him, one hand at his neck, the other lifting his head gently, rotating him to safety. She checked his breathing, whispered something only he could hear. When Derek's eyes opened, she propped him up, letting the blood return slowly, safely. No celebration, no boast. Sarah raised a hand and a match. No one objected. The videos uploaded almost instantly from dozens of accounts at once. The phrase, "Shock justice for Marcia," appeared everywhere unplanned. Veteran fighters reposted it, commenting short lines about technique, restraint, teaching through example. Rivera glanced at a boy's phone nearby, saw his own reflection in the corner, saw Marcia's eyes never once meeting the camera. Tyler picked up the fallen mouthguard, holding it for a long moment as if cradling a habit he was ready to let go of. Derek left the gym with a towel around his neck and a new story forming in his head. He spoke to no one. Posted nothing that night. The next morning, a call went out to attorney Richard Kellerman's office. Sunday evening, Derek sat before a softly lit backdrop, giving a slightly different version to the local news camera. He said he'd tried to help. He said he'd been attacked during a light sparring session. He said people didn't see what happened before the clip began. Monday dawned dim. Knocks echoed down the apartment hallway. Maya pulled back the curtain, looking toward the courtyard. Two officers stood at the door, red and blue lights flashing in the glass. When the cuffs touched her mother's wrists, the kitchen air thickened like storm humidity. Breakfast sat untouched on the plates. The world had shifted direction, fast cold, like a strange wind scattering everything they'd managed to steady since Friday night. Morning news loves a story with a hero and a victim, and when it can't find them fast enough, it simply decides who's who. Derek appeared in a turtleneck, a thin bandage around his neck, his voice trembling just enough. He spoke of nightmares, blackouts, lingering headaches. The broadcast cut to slow-motion frames of the left hook, frozen right before he hit the floor. Everything before that, the weeks of humiliation, the deliberate blows vanished into the black gap between two edits. Commentators nodded gravely. Crawling text reminded viewers this was workplace violence. The question wasn't who taught wrong, but whether someone with skill could be considered more dangerous than someone without it. The prosecutor's office opened a case as fast as pulling a drawer. Amanda Carter laid the papers down, reciting familiar lines. The defendant possesses specialized skill. The defendant carries higher responsibility. The defendant used force capable of causing serious harm in a workplace environment. Derek's lawyer, Richard Kellerman, filed to exclude the viral video, arguing it could unfairly sway the jury. He requested character witnesses, people who testify to the dedication of a coach who gave others a chance. He built his case like a stage set. Marcia concealed her abilities. Marcia was unstable. Marcia couldn't control her reactions. Marcia's court-appointed attorney, Jennifer Walsh, arrived with the red eyes of someone juggling 47 open files. She asked the right questions and knew she needed more than what she had. Meanwhile, James Morrison, Iron Forge's lead investor, sent Sarah an email. Any company employee who testifies against our coach will be immediately terminated. Sarah read it, closed her laptop, and looked at her locker. 7 thick folders sat inside: dates, hours, details, names. The lock clicked sharply when she turned the key. Maya didn't watch the morning news. She opened a new account instead. Chose a photo of her mother out of uniform, smiling on an ordinary sunny day. The first video was just a story. Mom worked night shifts for 3 years. Mom bought me new shoes for the first day of school. Mom kept her old medals in a shoebox, never bragged. She placed a small gold trophy with golden gloves etched on it beside a patch of navy fabric embroidered with a logo she couldn't name. She spoke slowly, without crying eyes, steady on the phone camera propped on a stack of books. The video flowed quietly, but by noon it had reached millions. The comments began to change. The only thing stronger than an edited narrative is a human voice that doesn't need editing. That night, Rivera sat in his kitchen with an old laptop. He replayed every audio clip, 17 minutes of Derek's voice woven with background hum. Girl, I'll break her till she quits. I'll stage it so no one can prove it. He uploaded the files to a private channel. No flashy title. Just a single link sent to Maya's inbox with 7 words: "Your mother deserves better than this." The link didn't stay private for long. It passed hand to hand like a key, unlocking a dozen hidden rooms at once. The morning of the first hearing, people lined the courthouse hallway. Half wore shirts printed with "Justice for Derek." The other half held handwritten signs for Marcia. When Marcia entered, Maya squeezed her mother's hand for 1 second tight. Jennifer Walsh nodded fewer words, now her eyes clearer, because a team of civil rights lawyers had volunteered to help. Amanda Carter spoke first. Crisp. The law is the law. A person with skill must exercise greater control. A single punch can become a weapon in the wrong setting. Kellerman rose, voice measured, pointing to his client's neck brace to medical reports listing lost work hours, projected damages. Then came cross-examination. Jennifer pressed play. The courtroom filled with Derek's own voice, no soft lighting, no soundtrack, just the solid tone of a man heard too clearly. I'll break that girl until she quits or does something stupid. They need to know who runs this place. Kellerman objected. The judge's gavel fell once, and the room only grew more focused. Sarah took the stand, hands trembling slightly, but voice steady. She read the dates of internal complaints that had been handled internally and vanished. She showed cleaning schedules forced into peak hours. She testified that she'd been advised not to stir things up for the brand's sake. Rivera followed. He didn't say much. He explained how an open chin under a rear-naked choke was a beginner's error, how missed punches could be aimed to strike weak spots. He spoke simply about respect in martial arts. He never said the word discrimination, but the whole room heard it between his lines. Marcia spoke last. She didn't deliver a speech, she told a life. The long walks from the parking lot to the side door. The smell of disinfectant that clung to her shirt until morning. The hot sting in her shoulder when holding pads for his demo. The dinner's missing dishes. The fridge growing emptier. The nights Maya turned to the wall after reading comments that called her mother names not meant for humans. She told of Friday night the moment she knelt beside the man she'd just knocked down checking his pulse. She said that if not for Maya, she would have quit the first time someone called her girl in front of the class. She looked at the jury and said simply, "Thank you for listening all the way." That's when Derek broke. He jumped up, shouting the same tired blades he'd always thrown. "You wanted to humiliate me. You wanted the spotlight. I gave you a job. I tried to help you. People like you always want more than your share." Kellerman grabbed his sleeve. The judge banged the gavel, but it was over. The mask had fallen, and it wouldn't rise again. The jury deliberated 47 minutes. When they returned, 2 words cracked open the air. Not guilty. Maya burst into tears in her mother's arms. The judge ordered compensation for legal fees and emotional distress. 2 weeks later, the State Athletic Commission revoked Derek's coaching license and banned him from running any combat sport facility. Sponsors withdrew one by one. Social media accounts faded, followers thinning like dust. A throne built on light couldn't survive the sunrise. The first emails arrived just a week after the verdict. They began with "Dear Ms. Williams," then rolled out lists of equipment staff and salaries, triple what any ordinary position could offer. There were invitations to fly east and host seminars on defensive technique book deals, even sponsorship offers from a major sportswear brand. Marcia read every message, thanked them all, then set them aside. The idea of a place bearing her name appeared in her mind like a faint chalk line on the mat, not a billboard screaming from a street corner. Second Chance Defense Academy was born in a streak of Phoenix morning sunlight. The front glass reflected rows of cactus pots by the sidewalk. Inside, new mats, the faint smell of rubber-clean squares of flooring. No flashy decor. Only a small wooden sign on the wall engraved with 3 lines, "Real technique. Real respect. Strength to protect." Tuition wasn't fixed. Those who could pay more did. Those who couldn't paid less. Those who had nothing helped clean floors in exchange for training hours. Rivera led the main classes, steady voice, firm hands, every movement drawn with clarity. Sarah handled operations, spreadsheets open, parent emails, answered with precise punctuation and a kind line at the end. Tyler walked in with clean shoes and the shy eyes of someone starting over. He learned to tuck his chin to find the opponent's arm, to use 2 hands on one wrist to hip escape when the floor itself seemed to hold his legs in fear. He no longer heard shouting, only calm instructions delivered exactly when needed. Maya set up a small rack in the corner and turned it into a filming station. She recorded her mother correcting a teenager's rear naked choke defense. She filmed Rivera teaching a 70-year-old woman how to stand. She filmed Sarah explaining the new house rules posted by the door. No one gets mocked. No one is left alone. No one is called by a name that makes them smaller. Those videos had no flashy cuts, no music drops, but they landed exactly where they needed to. The following grew quietly without begging for clicks. Gyms from other states began emailing for a copy of the rulebook. People started calling it, naturally, the Williams Standard. Gym owners debated it in private groups, then quietly adopted it. Mandatory anti-harassment training, ethical evaluations, alongside technical ones, anonymous reporting channels to independent boards, and students' right to stop a session if they ever felt unsafe. 6 months passed. Second Chance ran 18 hours a day. Kids came after school backpacks still heavy with books, Mothers pushed open the door, sat on the steps, eyes softening after long shifts. A former gang member trained beside a warehouse dad. An elderly woman learned to roll her shoulders, refusing to let anyone drag her by the wrist again. The air inside didn't smell like fear. It smelled like people learning to stand tall before they learned to strike. Then came a letter from the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation, a breeze through the window. They wanted to create an award in Marsha's name, honoring coaches who put ethics at the heart of technique. An independent studio made a short documentary. A major streaming platform bought it. Viewers came by the millions. But what stayed with Marsha the most was a short email from a mother at a nearby public high school. Since Second Chance's anti-bullying program started, there reports of violence had dropped sharply, and her son had just stepped in to protect a smaller kid in the hallway using the exact move he'd learned in his 3rd class. Tyler had his first professional fight. He won, but what he said afterward won more. Victory isn't hitting the hardest, he told the interviewer. It's knowing when to stop before you become what you used to hate. The quote spread wide and slow, like a pebble rippling across still water. Maya received an acceptance letter to a pre-law program, a doorway toward turning voices into words that carried weight. She hugged her mother and said she wanted to learn how to write the rules that keep people safe before they ever have to learn a punch. As for Derek Stone, he left town quietly. A cheap gym in a small roadside city hired him for evening shifts, hourly pay. He posted a few videos trying to rekindle the old glow. But every time the light hit, the comments returned, reminding him of those 17 minutes of audio, of the words that could never be scrubbed away, of the left hook that became more than a punch, it became a line. 3 former employees filed discrimination suits attaching Rivera's recordings. The court scheduled hearings. Mornings at Second Chance all felt reassuringly the same. Marsha unlocked the doors early, scanned the mats, wiped the faint marks, adjusted the heavy bag, not because there wasn't staff, but because she wanted to touch what once defined her work to remember why she stood there. The heavy bag that once stripped a man's mask now hung at the center beneath a small wooden plaque. The most dangerous person in the room is often the one most underestimated. Across the far wall, her handwriting spelled out plain lines, no flourish, no fade. We teach people to fight so they won't have to. We build strength to protect the weak. We earn respect by giving it first. Sunlight spilled across the floor. People who once stood on opposite sides now stretched beside each other, breathing in rhythm. Marsha looked around, listening to the steady breaths, and knew sometimes a single left hook can spin someone's world onto a new orbit, where strength doesn't create victims but circles protectively around the most fragile among us. From that fateful left hook to the birth of Second Chance Defense Academy, Marcia had proven technique can knock someone down, but dignity is what lifts a whole community back up. What do you think true strength is? Defeating your opponent or lifting them up at the right moment? If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe with the bell on so you don't miss the next story of justice.